India's Defence Minister Nirmala Sitharaman is speaking at a summit in Mumbai. Let's listen in.
So was not raised during 2+2. It did not surprise me, but I was happy for the fact that it did not get raised.
But since then we haven't heard any other word from, it seems the Americans haven't made up their mind, or do you think that they...
In what sense? Would you want to explain?
Well, I think there was a thought that the CATSA the Americans have to make a choice whether to actually impose sanctions on India for buying this advanced system from Russia, according to American law, or whether they would make a waiver for India particularly. Am I mischaracterizing the question?
I'll probably have to pick on the words that you've chosen to say there. Americans will have to make a choice whether...
Well, they'll choose what their policy is. I'm not saying
that's
that
right. I'm glad you said that. Buying S-400 is a choice that India makes. And we are very clear on that, and we have made our side of the decision very clear. And I'm also grateful in a sense and happy largely that the American, as represented by the Secretary of Defense, position was that they understood why India had to go ahead with some of our purchases, considering that for a strong India, which is what partnerships are all about, you would want your partner to be strong, you would want your partner to be also in a position to defend herself and then be able to be the first responder in the region. I'm happy that the Americans are today being able to understand the point that India has to be strong. And Indo-Pacific, which is a position which is also something which I definitely respond by saying it was very satisfactory progress in that the Americans had named their Pacific Command as Indo-Pacific Command even before the 2+2 dialogue commenced. So if India takes the position of a good strategic partner for the United States, I would think it is necessary to appreciate for India to be strong, it needs the kind of equipments for keeping its army with an Army, Air Force, Navy, armed forces with a level of preparedness which is necessary, and India's borders, whether it is in the western border or the northern border, we have reasons to have such equipments which are necessary for us.
If I can just put on for a moment the hat of someone who's strategically questioning India's position, there have been questions raised about this S-400 system because the Chinese who face India, and this is one along that border that it might be deployed, actually have the same system as well on their side. So there's a question as to whether it is actually the best system to have the same system on both sides. And the other part of the question is about Russia as a defense partner. I think just now, this last week, Russia, for the third year running, is engaging in a joint military exercise with Pakistan. Is Russia the best or a reliable defense partner for India?
Well, decisions on the two aspects which are being raised in your question, as I understand, is one, hasn't your neighbor, the northern neighbor, also got S-400, therefore why S-400? I think decisions on such huge, big platforms are not taken overnight. And the users of such things, whether it's the armed forces and the MOD, Ministry of Defense, do spend considerable time with technically qualified people, with the forces, with people who understand defense equipments, and then arrive at something, then start negotiating on cost, also if it's an intergovernmental arrangement and so on. So if somebody has the same equipment, would you want to have it, is a factor which would have been considered even at that time. So I don't think it's me sitting there saying I want S-400. There are whole processes which happen. And the other is Russia is more friendlier or is doing with exercises with Pakistan, so is Russia a reliable ally for India? Russia has been an ally for India for over several decades. And India has also been procuring equipments from the United States for several years now. So India as a country takes its requirement from various different sources. It doesn't just take from Russia like once we did, but we do buy it from several sources. So I would just like to place it in that context.
And one of the other sources, of course, is France. And one of the issues that's been very much, probably to your dismay, in the air is the question of the Rafale purchase. And I don't mean to go into great detail about that, because I think the Indian public is a bit saturated in some ways. But there's just one particular question, which is that much of the focus on this issue has been about a particular offset deal done between the French company Dassault and Reliance. And that's been the focus. I just wonder what other offset deals have come out of that arrangement. I mean, we haven't heard them announced. I just wondered if you had anything to say. Are there other offset deals between Dassault and Indian firms?
I guess so. Because the information or the official records on offsets will be kept by the ministry from the time claims are made by, in this case we are talking about Dassault, therefore about Dassault. Rafale is, or in the Rafale supply, which is an intergovernmental agreement, Dassault together with three other companies are participating in the supply of Rafale. So each one of them will have an offset obligation to be fulfilled. Now, offset obligation for each one of them can be fulfilled through various vendors who are in India, in which case they would be buying some product from them, or through various investments that they make as joint ventures, or through services which also can be procured. Now for Dassault alone to come back to me to say that the offset is getting fulfilled completely through 1, 2, 3 or any number of companies with whom they either go for investment or go for buying of a product or buying of a service, is left to Dassault to come to me to claim it. Till such a time they claim each and every one of them, I'll not know whether they are with 1 or 10 or with 100. And is it an investment or is it buying a product or so on. The commencement of the delivery itself has not begun of the Rafale. They still have time to come back to me to say, look, my offset is getting fulfilled through these routes. Together with the claim, they'll also have to give me bills of what has happened, transaction details of who got the money from where, for what purpose. And there is a set procedure in the ministry through which they will go about checking if the claims are right. And they are authorized with bank transactions. Till all that is done, I can't even claim how many people they are going with, just based on media reports. They may be going with 1 or 10 or 100, but that's something which I'll get to know only when they can claim to me. They still have time to claim. So I can't officially say with whom they have gone for offset partnership.
So for the time being, it's only Reliance which has been announced as a partner.
For the time being, it's only the media who claim about offset, not me.
Very good, very good. There's one of the sort of returning troubles for India over the last many governments has been the question of defense procurement, how it goes about the system for procurement. And it just seems to produce trouble for whichever government is in power. Has there been an attempt under your guidance to change the procurement structure, or how India goes about its weapons procurements?
You're right partly in that defense procurements have remained too complicated, complex, time-consuming, and therefore, also because they are not very black and white, they can remain opaque, and as a result of which cause suspicion in the minds of people. What we have done since our government has come, Prime Minister's insistence on keeping processes transparent, cutting down on everything which is discretionary, driving it from the policy rather than from personal interests, have all brought in greater transparency in the system. And even before, there has been this instrument, because every defense procurement either goes through the route of a intergovernmental purchase. Many of our purchases with Russia have always been intergovernmental. Whereas the other route would be going through a tender system, global, universal tender, where everybody bids. First you issue, requests for information, then you go for open tenders, and then the tender bids are open, which is what happened in that 126 MMRCA non-deal, which never happened, but even today we hear our opposition talking about, we bought it at this rate, you are buying at this rate, when they didn't buy at all. So that open tender system is one other way. What we have done is not to go through the tender system for the purchase of that emergency numbers you required. The emergency number which UPA required were 18. But with more time passing, the emergency number that we wanted was 36, equivalent to 2 squadrons. And there we didn't go for open tender, which is what they did. For the 18 and for the rest, they went for a tender. What we have done is for the 36, we've gone for an intergovernmental agreement. I've said there are 2 ways in which you procure, intergovernmental and the global tendering process. They adopted the global tendering process for the 18 plus the rest to be manufactured in India. What we have done is go for intergovernmental agreement for the 36. The rest would be through strategic partnership, which is again an overseas manufacturer who we call as OEM, together if necessary with some kind of an Indian partnership for the manufacturing of the rest which is required by the Air Force. So the processes have been simplified, the processes is much more transparent now, and that is why you have so much information now in the public that it's obvious there's no scandal anyway, there's no crony anyway, and therefore you don't know why the opposition wants to go around searching for the Holy Grail.
I think, how would you, I think there's been some criticism that in terms of the Make in India initiative, the defense sector has not been as successful as some other sectors. There hasn't been a lot of foreign investment in the defense sector. Could you explain why that is?
I wouldn't agree with that understanding, although I can see why you want to come up with that argument. Because defense industry was not available for private investment for a very long time. It's after our government coming in 2014, we took a bit of a time, but we've relaxed a lot of regulations for private sector to be in defense manufacturing also. As a result of which I can tell you today that under Make in India, many of the components manufacturing or subsystem manufacturing have all been opened up for private sector, and therefore a lot of production which can happen through the private sector also. And only when you open up for private sector will they have some FDI requirements or partnership or increase in investment, their own investments. Now, together with that, we've also opened up on investment for FDI, up to 49% has been opened up through the automatic route. They don't even have to come to seek permission. So in fact, that is one of the reasons why I don't keep a list of those FDIs which have come into defense industry in my hand readily till such a time they start producing. The other difficulty that I can personally say with my little exposure in commerce before coming here is for defense goods, particularly when you're looking at India as a manufacturing hub for exporting defense products. You don't have a harmonized system of classification. You don't have a separate code given for defense equipments. They go under engineering equipments. So even if they manufacture and sell outside, it'll go under engineering goods rather than defense-related engineering goods. So you're just not going to put a net into the whole system and pull out with the items in it, caught as defense So there is, I think we're going through a phase where we're trying to get different categories specified in the harmonized system so that you can see what goes out as export, and also to have investments come into specific defense related industries. We will take time to codify them.
Thanks. The Honourable Minister will be taking some questions in a minute, but I'll just continue a bit. But if you have questions, think of them first, and then we can pose them in a couple of minutes. There's been some changes in the shape of the security establishment in India lately, just very lately, with the bolstering of the position of the National Security Council. And I've heard criticisms from in the army, within the armed forces, that there had been some hope that there would be a more unified military command. I mean, actual army command, Army, Air Force, all the joint services. But it seems that by strengthening the National Security Council, some people worry that there won't be this reform of the actual military command. Is that true, or do you have a comment on that?
Well, the impressions that you've got are very mixed. They're mixing up two different things altogether. It's one thing to have a unified command, bring all the three services together, have an integrated, Army, Navy, and Air Force, like the way we have initiated in Andaman Nicobar. Andaman Nicobar command is an integrated command. We've already moved in that direction. The chief who heads that controls everything to do with Army, Navy, and Air Force located in that area which comes under his command. So that jointness is already executed in Andaman Nicobar. We will probably be moving towards having other commands also gradually move, so that assets which we have from the Ministry of Defense for the three forces are better utilized, optimally utilized. And command structures also get better hierarchy, and there is a command and control structure which is lots more energetic. So that is already happening. And you find that the lessons learned from Andaman Nicobar are being absorbed by the other groups, even by the other commands within the mainland too. So that's one issue on which work is already commenced. But if you're looking at Security and Strategic Council and looking at the National Security Council or the NSA, now, because he's going to have to bring in other ministries, other departments which have a connotation on security-related matters, that doesn't undermine the Raksha Mantralaya. That doesn't in any way take away the powers of the three forces, which largely are remaining autonomous to themselves for their areas. Today, defense of India is not just through your Army, Navy, or Air Force alone. Cyber security, space-related problems, and space-related security activities. And when cyber doesn't confine itself only to the software industry, but also has severe repercussions on your security network, you need to have an interministerial coordination, and that's where the NSA plays a role. And even then, the collective decisions that are being discussed there will have to pass through the Raksha Mantri and then only go into the Cabinet Committee on Security. So that could be the forum where most of these things are being discussed, but through that, whatever comes out passes through the Raksha Mantralaya, gets the approval of the Raksha Mantri, and then only goes to the Cabinet Committee. So there is no undermining of anybody or any institution in the Ministry of Defense.
A related question, which is the last one I'll ask before opening up to the floor, is apparently China in the last 3 years or so has done a quite major restructuring, especially of its land forces, its army forces, and has in fact cut down the number of soldiers by about 300,000. I think they're well under 1 million now. And I just wonder if India has a similar idea of making a smaller, fewer number, but stronger in technology and so on. Is that on the cards for India to actually reduce the numbers?
Well, the Shekatkar Committee, which was one of the major reforms driven committee to look at the armed forces, had come up with some recommendations. One of it pertains to keeping the Army and Navy and the Air Force a lean and powerful machine. That's where the discussion about the teeth to tail ratio of what is in the forces is discussed very often. And discussed because it's also part of a recommendation, a reform-based recommendation. So the three forces have had within themselves, among their commanders, discussions on how to improve the teeth-to-tail ratio, how to improve the age levels of, improve in the sense, bring down the age levels of commandants who are going to be commanding units. So in that process, a lot of discussions have happened. Modernization with a lot more tech savvy equipments are being brought in, where you can avoid a well-skilled air pilot, for instance, from facing risks. You can bring in a kind of a robot, or even the various kind of unmanned vehicles. We are trying to look at those alternatives also. So this discussion about or comparing Indian armed forces with that of China, the principles are similar, but the ways in which we are going about it are a lot more nuanced. And in that, the army chief probably has already started talking about it, but strictly speaking, Shekartkar committee's fallout on this aspect, being discussed with the three forces, has not reached me as yet.
Thanks. I would like to open it to the floor now. Sir, if you'd just like to identify yourself, and there will be a mic in your hand. There you go. And please, questions rather than comments, if we may.
My name is R. Suresh. Although you want me to come to the question directly, but I still have to compliment the Honorable Defense Minister for the kind of work she's doing. It's so reassuring to hear her every time we hear her. We feel very safe. I want to personally compliment you, Madam, for the kind of work you're doing. My question is at a very broad level. China and Pakistan are together, particularly to accomplish the Chinese mission of One Belt, One Road initiative. China is also going into the new Silk Route. China has also come into the Indian Ocean. China is really the superpower now, like all the media, including economists, are saying. So what is India's 60,000 feet strategy to counter the might and the growth of our neighbor? If some of the things may be confidential, but in principle, how is India responding?
Thank you. Would you like to go straight for that? Why don't we just answer that right away? Would you rather take should we take another question just to give the minister? Let's have someone. Let's see. I'd like to have someone different. We have the same people asking questions. So there you are. I didn't see it. Yeah, please do. Yeah. If you can shout. If you can identify yourself and.
Ma'am, this is Saurabh Shukla. I'm founder and editor-in-chief of News Mobile from Delhi. Ma'am, you spoke about the Rafale deal very, very candidly. Can you assure the nation that whatever has happened in the transparent manner? And can you say that the opposition has been misleading the people of India in that case, and they should apologize to the country for what they've been saying?
Thank you. I think we'll just stop with those two questions
See, on the China issue, I think you have placed before this House the various ways through which Chinese presence in this region is increasing. It'll be very simple from my side if I say we have taken cognizance of it, but there's a steady, process through which you're looking at how your opponents are, where are they present, to what extent diplomacy works in engagements, how are the kind of flashpoints being handled. These are comprehensive and several layered work which continuously happens. I understand the perception that you're getting surrounded, are we safe, is something which I would want to only assure you that there are, together with the three armed forces, very qualified people, strategic experts not just from the government, but outside also, so that we get independent view. All of them together looking at India's position and endowing India and its armed forces to be ready for any situation. So I can only share that we are continuously watching and also maintaining our alert. So you can be assured that you're being led by a very effective Prime Minister who keeps nation first.
And on the other question about Rafale and transparency.
Yes. See, the opposition has been asking questions and we've been answering questions. We have not ducked any one question. We have not tried to deter them from asking any questions. And if you notice, because I don't know, because we are answering questions, they are moving from one milepost to another. First it could be what is the price of the basic aircraft. Then they could say what is the price of the with the ammunition aircraft, all being compared to the aircraft that they apparently bought God knows where. And then they move over to offset, a policy which was made during their time. They know the policy and its implication. They know that if offset claims have to be made, it can be made only at a certain time. With all this, they keep asking you the questions. And even on this question of the crony capitalism allegation, the very same organization, even in 2012, when the MMRCA was being discussed, had an association with Dassault. Later on, if the family broke, brothers broke, between the assets were broken between or divided between the two brothers, one got this, one got that, the Dassault makes its decision who to go with. And what we are doing, as I explained earlier, we are not even going through the global tendering, we are going through an intergovernmental agreement for purely the 36. Who an offset partner is for a commercial decision to be made by the OEM is entirely the OEM's business. I am 100% sure that the Congress party fully understands the substance of what they're talking about and also the implication of the misleading, baseless allegations they're going about throwing.
Sorry,
I can only
allegations about
the Rafale deal.
Okay, sorry, no, I didn't quite understand. There's a word you used.
Baseless?
No, I understand that. I understand that very well. No.
Which
you said
one?
Baseless accusations about...
Which one did you not understand?
You said baseless accusations about, what was the word?
Offset obligations.
No, I'm sorry.
Crony capitalism.
No, there's a specific word.
Others were basic English words. So the baseless allegation that the Congress party is making, despite the fact that they know the rules about which we are talking also, the rules which were essentially framed during their period, very clearly tells me one thing, that they're misleading the nation brazenly. And we are willing to give the answer wherever they want on all these questions, and we've answered them. So, that I'm sure addresses all the questions you've raised.
Does it?
Partially. Don't please talk like the Congress party.
Right. Well, shall we have another question then? Yes, sir. Yeah. Well, do you mind if I leave you in? There's someone at the far back who I haven't heard from yet. Yeah. That's right. You sir. Yeah. Please. Yeah. Just wait a minute. Yeah. If you don't mind.
My name is Vijay Pava. I'm a retired corporate executive, interested in current affairs, flown in all the way from Delhi to attend this India summit. My question to the Honorable Minister is that why is the ministry not able to put forth their view as candidly as you have done today to the media? Why is the media reporting it in a manner you think is suspect?
I've not said I feel that the media is putting out a version which is suspect. I've not said that. And the views that I've said here, I've been saying also, earlier also, with other media houses also. The question is, the people who are asking the questions, are they asking after hearing the answers? Then they wouldn't ask the same question. My answer may be convincing or not convincing for them, but the question asked therefore should be reflective of, you've said this, but I'm sorry, this is what I want to know, or I'm sorry, no, you're not right, something of that kind. No, I'll keep parroting the same thing, irrespective of the answer you give. I've given the answer even in the parliament, but still I will keep answering. I'm asking them the question, which I did earlier too. Did you have a deal at all? Did you do anything for HAL at all? Did you decry HAL or not? It's not the opposition alone which can keep asking questions. Of course, it's the government to answer. We have answered. But I also incidentally happen to have some questions for them to answer. Let them answer that. No, they would not, because their campaign is based on keeping the people with a sense of doubt. Or possibly there is. Modi ji may not be corrupt. Modi ji will not allow corruption. He will not allow crony capitalism. We are very sure on that. But, you know, that element of doubt is what they want to work on in the minds of the people. I'm sure they're going to fail.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. We are really out of time, but I just have one tiny last question, which is, which job would you like in the next government?
That's not for me to say.
Right, okay. Well, thank you very much. It was a pleasure having you, and we'll move right on to our next session, which I'll have to remind myself what it's about. It's not lunch yet, which is important. What is the next session? We have another session.
All right, so that was India's Defence Minister Nirmala Sitharaman there speaking at the India Summit in Mumbai. And she's spoken about several issues, and one of the key issues that she's addressed is the criticism of the government over how it has gone about the Rafale deal, where the opposition, the Congress party and several other parties have been questioning the lack of transparency. They've also asked on what basis was Reliance Defence, a company that was brought into existence just 10-12 days ahead of this deal being announced in France between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the then French President Francois Hollande. What was the basis of getting Reliance Defence, and why was HAL shunted out? So she's spoken extensively on several of these issues, stating that the government is of course trying to be as transparent as possible, and she's also gone on and stated that the government presently has got the interests of India, and therefore the deal to purchase the 36 Rafale jets in a flyaway condition from France on an immediate basis was taken to bolster India's air security, and therefore there is absolutely no sort of a scandal or a scam, and even the Reliance Defence deals were all completely above board.